So I've been wearing a lot of sweaters in my videos recently. Sweaters with buttons. Has a pattern on it. It's called Donegal. Favorite pattern. 大家好，欢迎来到我的频道。New learners, veteran learners, language dabblers, or marathon runners if you've seen my last video. In this race of language learning spanning territory, country, time zone, seasons, most of us have a desire to do one thing in our target language, to speak. While we may have various goals branching into various domains of language skills, spoken communication is probably on top of your to-do list. Speaking in your target language opens up a new level of linguistic experiences. You are no longer limited by what is written or recorded, but rather you can convey your own thoughts to others. Your own little world has now opened up to new people, new cultures, new patterns of thinking, new discourse. It's such an amazing way to connect with people that you would never think of holding even a simple conversation with. But this grandiose idea of intellectual discourse in another language, like discussing Voltaire in French or reading Dostoevsky in Russian. I definitely butchered that. Chatting with the locals or experiencing the breadth of flavors of Taiwanese street food. That's the end game. That's after we learn our language to fluency. But that's skipping steps 1, 2, 3, 99, 100, and so forth. What about the beginning or the in-between? But how do you start speaking when you suck? Do you just wait until you're completely fluent or start from day one? Various people will offer various thoughts when you scour for answers over the interweb. I have my own thoughts on this matter. I even made a video a few weeks ago talking about ways I've improved my own Chinese pronunciation. But what I'm trying to examine here is less about how to develop the skill set required to speak, but rather what stops us from speaking when we want to. This video is not about 10 steps to finally pronounce things well in your target language. It's more of a commentary on the psychological barriers we face when we try to take those first baby steps into spoken language. It's about confidence and our general inability to handle imperfection and failure. And I don't know if you resonate with that, but I definitely do. If you've watched some of my earlier videos, you would have noticed that I'm not really prioritizing speaking my target language, Chinese. I'm following the idea in the language acquisition camp that we need enough input before outputting. I want to get to a higher level of comprehensibility and fluency before venturing out into that territory. I want to internalize enough Chinese so that once I do take that leap forward, I will sound more like a native speaker and less like a foreign learner. But what I've been realizing recently is that according to my definition of being ready for speaking, I will never be fluent enough. How does one define what level is suitable for speaking? Is it that golden 10,000 hour mark where we'll master anything? Or somewhere more in the intermediate stage? Is it when I'm able to understand everyday conversation with my Chinese-speaking friends? Or do I need to be articulate and read fancy novels before I can speak? How can I speak without making a fool of myself? And that's the question and fear that I realized prevented me from speaking. I don't want to speak too early because then I'll always sound like a foreigner. I want to get as fluent as possible, sound as close to a native as possible, and I still want to do that. But what's so wrong about being a language learner? Why are we so afraid of showing our mistakes to other people? No one excels when they first start learning something. There's periods of trial and error, making mistakes and learning from them. If one does not fail, then one can't really learn. How can you get better if there's no incentive or environmental insult that requires adaptation, innovation, creativity, learning what works and what doesn't work? If we wait until we're good enough to speak, will we ever get there? I don't think I would. I'm a perfectionist. I want to be as good as possible, and then once I start speaking, I'll magically wow everyone with my sick Chinese skills that are already perfect. That's totally realistic, right? That's just how successful language learners work. No. That's as improbable as pigs flying. I mean, theoretically, you could get a pig to fly if you just put them on a plane, or manufacture some sort of pig flying contraption like Falcon from the Avengers. Just like you could learn every single word construction, grammar point, cultural inference, nuance, synonym, antonym, idiom prior to speaking. But is that really the best way? Is that even realistic? We're still learning so many new things in our native language. We're not perfect in our native language. I suck at spelling. I suck at speaking sometimes. I make mistakes. But do we stop ourselves from discussing new topics, books, movies, thoughts, or just having a good time with friends? No. We're okay with making mistakes in our native language because it's just whatever. It's just a slip of the tongue. So then why do we get so caught up in making mistakes with our target language? And I personally think that part of the answer to that question is that we start to define ourselves by our ability or inability to learn our target language. We spend so many hours, blood, sweat, tears, laughs, joys, and so many other emotions immersed in our learning materials. It's hard not to identify ourselves as learners. I am a Chinese language learner. So what happens when our identity as a language learner comes into question because we're not progressing as quickly as we would have hoped? Or our pronunciation reveals that we still have so much more to go? Or our unnatural word choice or sentence construction reveals some funny but also potentially anxiety-inducing lost in translation situations. Why do I get paralyzed when I try to speak to even my close friends? Because I'm afraid of making a mistake and as a result, forget even the most basic of vocabulary. Have you ever felt that way too? Why do we put so much pressure on ourselves to be the perfect little language learners? It's not that serious. We started off learning because it was something that we were interested in and something that was fun. Has it shifted into something that demands perfection from you? Are you unsatisfied with anything less than 100% comprehensibility before moving on to the next resource? Oftentimes in the language acquisition camp, the most intense studying is idolized. Immerse all day, every day. I may not achieve perfection, but I want to get really, really, really damn close. But what happens when that intensity isn't enough to get us to the level of fluency we want in the time that we want? Instead, I want to propose a shift in our mindset. We're language learners, but also students, coworkers, friends, family members. We have lives. We're language learners, but that's not the entirety of who we are. If you make a mistake, don't let it affect your perception of your abilities. Fumbling on words doesn't mean that you're doomed to fail. You'll never be good because you just suck so hard. Instead, learn to embrace your mistakes. On my first video, I made a mistake in the literal thumbnail. I wrote 6 months as 6月 or June instead of 6个月 6 months. And a few commenters were really nice to point that out, and they were actually really kind about it. I was thinking about replacing the thumbnail, fixing that mistake, but I was like, who cares? I'm learning, I make mistakes, why be ashamed that I'm not perfect? And I couldn't even replace it if I wanted to because I don't have that actual photo anymore, so there's that. But here's a little story. One of my friends is in the States for a year, but is originally from Taiwan. She's been encouraging me to speak with her and do practice. But I was like, no, I can't. I'm not good enough yet. I have to wait until I learn more and then we can practice. But why don't I read to you? I'm so good at reading. Look at how good I am. And looking back on that moment, what a wasted opportunity. Why did I think that my friend was going to judge me and my seemingly subpar Chinese skills? Why was I so afraid to make a fool of myself when that's just part of the process? You would think that putting videos out on YouTube where I literally make a fool of myself on the regular would make me care less about language mistakes, but apparently not. But the next time that I saw my friend, I decided that I wanted to try speaking with her. Mistakes be damned. It was hard, There were a lot of confused looks, a lot of laughter at weird word choices, but ultimately it was actually really fun. We were just talking about normal things, and she very much enjoyed my roundabout way of explaining that I study neurodegeneration by saying brain death disease research. Yeah. How do you start speaking when you suck at learning a language? Just do it. Nike, please don't come after me. I don't have enough money for any lawsuits. But if you feel an itch to speak, just speak. Do what you can and don't stress about what you can't. Have confidence in your abilities and trust that the gaps will be filled in with time. Don't be afraid of making a fool out of yourself. You may be surprised at just how many people love these mistake-ridden conversations. But if you enjoyed that video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Let me know if you've ever felt this way. Is it just me? Is it just because I'm an anxiety-prone person? Maybe it's just too serious for me, but it's not for you guys. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you guys next time. Consider my Patreon. Check out Standard Mandarin Weekly. It's great, and yeah, have a good one. 再见.